With the sound of music. Cha-cha-cha-cha. That's a long intro part. It's a pretty long loading time. That's right. Big D Smoke saying pretty long loading time. You're right. You're 100% correct. We have a long loading time because we were talking about something, and it's none of your business. So then I turned on the mic, and now I'm about to change the scene because I'm about to go to scene 4, I believe. Let me see. Scene 4, now I'm full screen. What's up? I'm about to bring in our guest in just a second here, but I want to say thanks for everybody coming out on a Saturday, having a live stream Saturday extravaganza. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? We have a special guest here today who's a 7-time horticulture expert via the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society paperwork documentation. Is it 7-time or 8-time?
I am almost 8. I did my math wrong, and I won't hit 8 by end of year.
Oh, shit.
But there's stuff that I haven't even submitted yet that would put me like well past 8. I've just been so busy I haven't had the time to do it.
Okay, so 7-time award-winning Grand Master Horticulturist Extravaganza man. Bentley Pasco.
Howdy, guys.
I'll say his last name correctly when he's here.
I don't really care that much.
Well, bring him in on scene 3. We've got a little video playing in the background, and I got to change your color. You're a little weird looking. I got you set to...
Am I bright yellow?
Hold on. Just a second.
Am our boy like camera conspiracies demon lut?
You could. That would be fun. I could do that. Hold on.
The demon lut stream.
I could do the demon coloring. Hold on. Oh no, that's opacity. Don't mess with that. I could change your coloring. There we go. We had to go -14, and now you look like a human again.
Oh,
hold on. -12. Yeah, that looks good. All right. I don't know what was going on. I had that camera set to something goofy. I think I was recording some secrets that you people will never know about.
Uh-oh.
My other channel that no one knows about. Yeah, just try to find it. Just try to find my other channel. You'll never find it. I gotta move my text here. Oh no, what happened? Okay, hold on. Here we go. There we go. Now it's in front. Ah, perfect. God, it feels good. Except for that cottage cheese. There's a little cottage cheese container on the shelf behind you.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Oh.
If anybody's wondering, that does not have cottage cheese in it. It has most likely dried paint in it because I use those for my art fart stuff.
It's kind of like cottage cheese.
My arts farts. Okay, so Bentley is our guest. There he is. And I pointed the wrong way. I have to point like this. He's here live in studio today. And I want to say thanks to everybody coming out on Saturday, which I had already said. So I'm going to say it again because thank you. I like everybody coming out on Saturday. It feels like a holiday or something. I'm not 100%. But we're here to talk about plants and stuff, and we're definitely going to bust into that in just a second. I want to say a big shout out to everybody in the chat. JH Aquatics, Rubsk Vlogs. I don't know how to say your name right. Sorry. Sharpies Models and Aquatics, MD Fish Tanks, Cheryl Evans, The Secret History Living in Your Aquarium, Kevin's Aquariums, Cheryl Evans again, Aqua Balls, Big D Smoke, Jake D, Select Pet. We got a $5 super chat from Rob the Butcher, who, by the way, is one of the producers on this channel. So if you guys don't like what Rob is saying, then tough luck. You're going to have to become a producer too. Because he's a moderator now, so we'll deal with that. No. And somebody asked me a while ago, they're like, could I become a moderator on the channel if I become a producer? Yes.
Sure.
Yes, that's kind of how it works. Like, if you're a big supporter of the channel, of course, I'm going to at least give you a wrench. I mean, come on, right?
Absolute power.
Absolute power. Absolutely corrupts absolutely 90% of the time. Because we always have Jimmy Carter, right?
For as long as he's alive.
No, I'm saying that like absolute power absolutely corrupts 90% of the time.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Because we could always point at Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, well,
right?
Yeah.
You could be like, well, Jimmy Carter. I mean, look at that guy, right? And you'd be like, okay. It's not 100%.
He didn't do anything until after he was president, and then he's pretty freaking awesome.
He's a guy. I don't know. I'm just saying he wasn't like absolutely corrupted. That's all.
Yeah,
He's building a house with his bare hands as we speak right now while we talk about aquarium plants, right?
I would much rather talk about aquarium plants. I'm terrible at building houses.
Okay. Well, yeah, building houses is a whole thing. So we were going to talk about our kind of, and I didn't want to label it as top 10 species of plants, but we definitely wanted to talk about a few. And I'm going to start out with Ludwigia. Ludwigia is one of my favorite all-time plants.
Stole mine.
Not only are there a bunch of beginner versions of Ludwigia, there are a bunch of weird advanced versions of Ludwigia. And one of them, I would say, is an advanced one. Where did it go? Oh, crap. I had a Google image search, and now it disappeared.
I can name several advanced ones.
Okay, what do you got? Let's look up one of your advanced ones.
Okay, so you will want to find Ludwigia inclinata.
Oh, God.
Variation tornado.
Oh, you want the tornado, not the Cuba? Okay.
No, tornado is much harder to grow. I know because I've screwed it up.
Oh, yeah. So some people are labeling it curly.
Yeah, that's not correct.
And some people are labeling it.
And it is technically Ludwigia inclinata verticillata variation tornado, if you want its full scientific.
So I'm gonna.
So for those who really want to go absolutely crazy, that's all of it. It only has 4 names.
It only has 4 names.
It's only got 4.
That's all.
That's
all. Come on now. So I would wonder if anybody in the chat actually has this or not. First of all, I don't. I would say that, hey, I don't.
I don't because I killed it.
Did you murder it?
Yeah, I had 2 stems and it just refused despite having CO2, soft water, lots of exposure to sunlight, and a Fluval 3.0. I was like, nah, I'm just going to die.
It just died out on you?
Like, thanks, man.
That is pretty much a drag. That's... Where is my... Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. Wait. File destination.
Uh-oh.
Can you tell me the file destination real quick so that I can just do that? What the... Where is my hard drive?
On the C drive.
No, it's on the... Why is this... Hold on. So there's C, there's D, there's F, there's E, there's G, there's H. Is it on H? No.
You have a far more complicated computer than I do.
I think it's on Z, but it's not there.
And I work in tech.
But I don't see my renders file.
Uh-oh.
I don't know why that file is not there. Because it's not P or R or T. Because those are removable. It's not storage. Can't be O. That doesn't make any sense. Is it G? No, it's not G. Oh, it's E. Okay, there it is. Oops.
So to answer, just because I'm watching chat enough, MD Fish Tanks, which, casual YouTube celebrity right there.
Yeah.
Guy has blown up in the last year. I do not think any of the major grow houses actively grow Tornado Ludwigia because it's really, really temperamental and it doesn't tissue culture very well. It's kind of a hobbyist-only plant. For now. They'll figure it out, and then it'll be everywhere. But it's a really, really, really temperamental plant. And I both love it and hate it. I hate it because it died on me, and I love it because it's something I want, and I don't have it yet.
You don't have it yet?
Because I don't have it successfully growing yet. I can't put it like on my chalkboard of I've grown this. I don't have to grow it again if I don't want to.
So here's the difference between Ludwigia Tornado, the inclinata, right? And then I'll pull up a picture of Repens. So how did this go? Where did you get it from? Like what happened there?
Sure. So I am very fortunate in that the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society has an absolutely fantastic horticulture awards program. And every month that we have a meeting, we have what we call our mystery plant of the month. So if you have been submitting to your horticulture awards for the last, it's typically, I think, a 3-month to 4-month window, you are eligible, and they will bring out this thing and they'll show you a plant. And sometimes it's like identify the plant, and sometimes it'll be like, this plant's really easy to identify. Here's a second picture. Identify the nutrient deficiency going on with this plant, and it'll give you a little story of what's going on and what the dosing has been. And I might have to pull the mic closer to my face.
Oh, are you being quiet?
I see Preston John saying I'm quiet.
Okay.
I can be very loud, but I don't think you want me that loud.
I can turn you up. Make it easier.
So it's basically a way to guess things, and then once you, if you are correct, and there's usually anywhere between 3 and 6 that get given away each month, you will get the plant for free. So one of our months was Ludwigia Tornado, and I did not win it because I misread our entry requirement. In that I had to, because Ludwigia Tornado is really easily definable. It instead of normally we would just accept like Ludwigia variation tornado, we had to include the fact that it was an inclinata species.
Oh,
so we had to go 2 names deep, but not all 4, and I did not, so I was disqualified.
So you got the DNQ?
Yeah, so I bought some in auction instead, and paid a small king's ransom for it, as far as I'm concerned, for most of our...
How much did you pay? Do you recall?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to be exact.
No, I remember, because I had 3 stems of it, and I paid $16.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which, it's not horrible.
That's probably what I would pay.
But our auction prices are typically very cheap.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's probably what I would pay online. You know what I mean? If I
Right,
was to
and
order it somewhere.
If you were to order it somewhere, you'll see it anywhere between like, $5 and $10 a stem. It depends on the hobbyist. And yeah, I put it in my tank. I gave it lots of light. It had CO2. It had good nutrients. And it was just like, nah, I don't want to. And just melted on me. I was like, cool. Thanks. That's my best plant growing tank. And it just said no. And I'm like, all right, man.
So
yeah,
I've actually got some of this right now, which is the Ludwigia natans.
Ooh.
And I'll let me save this. I've got like one little shred of it on accident. Save the image. So let me grab this. I'll bring up an image of it.
Sure.
So you paid about $16. That's not too crazy.
Yeah, no, it's not horrific. But for me, I'm like a notorious cheapskate. So
well,
it is.
I think we all are when you get to the point where you're like, okay. You know, I spent this much on my CO2. I spent this much on my, you know, my substrate, my tank, my lights, all this stuff. And eventually you get to the point where you're like, this whole tank costs a lot of money, and I don't want to keep putting money in it, and then stuff not living. But I actually got some of this Natan's Red a while ago, and it died.
Oh, no.
This one over here, and I've got a picture of it. Oh, my arrow's no longer in the front. I got to move it to the front. There we go. So it died. Now, here's what's funny. I actually found the stem of it when I was rescaping, right? So it's like dead stem.
Really?
And I was like, I don't know what this dead stem is from. It had like just a little dangler root on it. And I was like, I bet you this is Ramasaur, right?
Did it come back from that little root?
Yeah, and I'll show it to you later. Oh. So there's this little nubbin came out of the substrate, right? And I was like, huh, what's this little nubbin? And I'm like, it's got that purpley red look to it. So I'm like, I was right. It's Ramasaur. Okay, totally fine. And then all of a sudden now it's like 1.5 inches tall, and you can see the defined leaves, and you're like, nope, that's Natan's. So, I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. If you're trying to propagate a plant from one tiny little, your luck is not going to be that good. My luck is not going to be that good. There's just really not that. It's not a great spot to start with just one little bit, but maybe at some point, maybe I'll be able to propagate it and get some more of it going, but I really doubt it, because just the slightest little goofy change in the water is going to kill that thing, and then it's like, oh,
a swift breeze.
Now they're all dead. Yeah.
So to answer Kevin's aquariums, it's Bentley, just like the car.
Yeah, just like the car.
So Ley.
Oh crap! I spelt it wrong. That's what I get. That's what I get for. There's no spell check on here, guys. Sorry.
Although we can just like constantly mispronounce and misspell my name. It can be a fun running gag.
It's kind of it's my thing.
I mean, pretty much. It's your jam.
At this point, it's pretty much my thing. But I should probably spell your name right, because that's the name of your YouTube channel, right?
It is.
It's just your name.
I am that person who has no fear of the internet and willing to put my actual legal name out there.
Yeah, but if you'd started your channel like 12 years ago, you probably would have had fear. I'm coming up on my 12-year anniversary on YouTube in like 3 weeks.
And mine is solely because of the period of time when your YouTube channel then had to be, or account in general had to be linked to Google+.
Oh, yeah.
And because the email that I initially opened it under, which is not really the email I use for any of my communication on my channel anymore, is my personal mail that I do like my resumes and stuff through when I'm applying for jobs and things. It kind of has to have my legal name attached to it.
I still use a Hotmail.
Nice.
Mainly because, like, you know, even Microsoft has been like, we have to change it to Outlook now.
Yeah, now it's all Outlook.
And they were like, look, it has to be Outlook now. But I've had that Hotmail account for so long that they gave me the option.
Yeah, to keep it.
And by the way, you can't give this guy the option to be like, no, I'm not going with your new thing.
So
I'm going to stay with my old goofy thing.
I will stay with that, and I will like give you the level of cringe that my Hotmail account is, because I still have it.
Right.
And this is from back. I made this when I was 13, and at the time I used to play vaguely competitively first-person shooting games.
I can't keep wearing this hat. That's bugging me. Sorry. Anybody like my hairstyle today? This is the dad look.
The hat hair.
This is what happens when you're a dad. And
I actually didn't wear a hat for once, so.
Well, this is what happens when you're a dad, and you get up at 4:30 on a Saturday, and you kind of make sure everybody's cool, and you do your dad pee thing, where you got to pee every dad moment of the time. And everybody's cool, everybody's good, and then you go back to sleep for a little bit, and then you get up, and everybody has become not cool, right? Everybody's lost their cool, and then you send your lady off to work, and then about a half an hour after that, when you're just hanging out with your daughter, having a good time, just being like, it's Saturday, we get to do whatever we want. We got Bentley coming over later, but I'm like, oh, she's gonna take a nap, and I'll hop in the shower and shave and stuff. And then at that half an hour mark, you get a phone call from your spouse that says, I forgot all of my paperwork for work. Can you drive it 45 minutes away?
Oh, no.
So I literally took all of those boxes of paperwork that are like the health insurance stuff, and loaded them all into my truck with Olivia, and we drove all the way over to Olympia. And of course, Vicky was like, I need this one box. Thanks, babe.
Thanks
She's
for
like,
bringing 40
did you put
of them.
all of them in here? I'm like, yeah. I don't know what
you need.
I don't know what you need. She kept telling me the blue one, but the box isn't blue, so I was just like, damn, I'm just gonna load it all in here. But yeah, that's this style I got going here on a Saturday. But I don't think I smell too bad. Am I ripe?
I think you're fine.
Does my house smell bad?
I don't know.
I know my house was smelling bad the other day because the compost. I forgot to take the compost out.
Uh-oh.
Bad dad move right there. Oops. Wait, what were we talking about?
So I'll finish. the cringe level at age 13, because I used to play a lot of like Quake and Half-Life, and I would always have a bright white avatar. So my old Hotmail is based off of my screen name from back then, which was Death Angel, which is like as edgelord 13-year-old as you can possibly get.
It's pretty edgelord,
and as opposite a human being as I am now. Like, it's so terrible.
I swear, I think I could probably go find some of the old email addresses that I've had over the years and just be like, "Oh,
I think the only
that's
one,
not good. It's good that I deleted that."
I think the only one that like I have still that I don't use, but is from when I used to DJ, that I still find humorous to myself, is my old DJ name. which as a large guy, I was DJ Fat Styles, and I DJ'd mostly small stuff. Like I did high schools and youth groups and things like that. I wasn't doing any like major clubs, but
you weren't all up in the club.
No, I actually like really hate the club scene in general. But
were you like EDM or?
So I used to
top 40.
No. So I used to mix house and trance with late 80s, early 90s hip hop.
Oh.
So if you were to look at my record collection back then, you would see things like Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, the censored versions of 2 Live Crew, stuff like that. And then you'd be mixing into things like DJ Icy or very similar like house and trance artists in that era. So it's a lot of late 90s, early 2000s when house and trance were at their like highest peaks.
yeah. Before
like what we would consider more like common day EDM really hit its foothold. But there was still some stuff like I would play. I'd use like things like Basement Jacks or there's an old group called like Madison Avenue, which these are all early thousands, late 90s EDM groups, and not traditional house or trance were also things that I liked just because I liked the general style of music they produced, and it would flow well once you did some beat match messing with like some of the hip hop tracks that I played with. It was kind of like my style, and I'd get youth groups where it was literally like, yeah, we don't want you to do any live mixing, just all radio appropriate radio music. And it was literally just like, here's burnt CDs I made the night before of like everything that was top 40 and on like, pop hip hop channels. Mm-hmm. The money was good, but man, it was like literally soul crushed my love for music. And part of why I got out of that industry was because I would do those events and I would take them because they paid better than most other things where I got to have more fun. Like I can remember I did this event for like 2,000 people for the Job's Daughters of Washington, which is a youth fraternity.
Oh.
Well, it's a youth sorority because it's all female. And it's basically a small subset of like the Masons.
Wow.
And, they paid me almost $900 an hour.
Really?
Well, it was like the total of it all was I hired a few guys that were some friends of mine that I just paid to work with me to like lug gear around basically. And if I needed a bathroom break to manage my equipment for the 5 minutes it would take me to run to a bathroom and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like a 2 hour actual like set of playing music plus my like sound check time and tear down and setup. So about 3 hours.
Right.
And it was, I made, it was like, I think 2,700 before taxing myself and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
It was a very, very lucrative night. But that's like also like the most I ever made. And
it's going very lucrative.
I had a lot of notoriety, but at the same time, it took like 10 hours of working on the gear, doing resoldering and all sorts of stuff because it was older gear. It just gets the bejesus beat out of it when it's like ramping as loud as it can go.
Yeah.
Before it starts getting into major distortion and all this nonsense. So if you ever have wondered like how I came to be the psychotic person I am today, that's part of it. It's like the things that I used to love a lot got so burned out of my soul that I just needed far more peaceful endeavors in my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. So you were just killing it as a DJ and then just gave up.
Pretty much.
You're just crushing it.
It was where I was doing best was in small youth groups that were all related to Masons because they paid really, really well.
Right.
And they were very small gigs. They would be 2 to 3 hours.
Uh-huh.
And I could get at least one a month.
Huh.
And it would make very good money for what I was doing.
But we don't want to work for the Masons.
No, I liked the Masons. I was in a Masonic fraternity as a younger lad.
Oh my God, the conspiracy.
I was a cult leader. Didn't you know this?
Oh my God, the conspiracy.
But
he's taking his Freemason styling into horticulture.
But am not actually a Freemason. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
So I'd done all this stuff, and those were the ones where I didn't get to live mix music. I was just basically crossfading like it was a radio station from song to song.
Wow.
And it was the same, and it was especially because that was the height of like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, that level of boy band. And most of the youth groups that were always looking for DJs were the female-based youth groups. Mm-hmm. And so you had huge swaths of girls who loved those bands, and that was all that would ever get requested.
Oh.
And I hated that music because I hate hyper formulaic music. So it was literally just like, I know I need to play it because this is what I'm getting paid to do, but I hate every minute of it. So eventually I was just like, I don't care how good the money is. I want out of this nonsense.
That's out of control. That's crazy. Well, we got a $20 super chat here from Ginger Graves. We got a shout out to Ginger. Thank you. She says, my plant guys, happy holidays. Just got my first CO2 kit and fancy plants. Let's see if I can grow any of them. But we do have a question from Ginger down here well after the $20 super chat, which we can answer. Because the first part was just kind of a statement. It says, I'm setting up my first CO2 tank. What is a good drop rate to start with? And I think what she's saying, good bubble rate, like bubbles per second.
Yep.
I bought some gorgeous stems, and I'm hoping to keep alive. A Fluval Flex 16-gallon will ultimately have fish and shrimp.
Okay.
I'm going to let you go first and then give you a heads up. We're going to talk about Anubias for just a couple minutes.
I maybe famously, maybe not so famously, prescribe to a method of low and slow when it comes to CO2. Like, I do not like pushing CO2 very heavily. That being said, I have done CO2 in a Fluval Flex of that size. There's the one that's behind my desk at home. And honestly, I think like a bubble a second is really good in that tank. Like it's a good rate. It gives you reasonable saturation of CO2. And you're not really, because of how you can like angle the jets and stuff like that to keep your water surface kind of nice and moving, you're not in too much of a risk of like oversaturating and having oxygenation issues or anything like that. So I would sit at like about a bubble a second, but that is also admittedly playing a little conservative because the lighting built into that Flex is only so strong. If you're going with like a different light, like you're swapping the light out to say like the Fluval Nano light, so you've got effectively a miniature Fluval 3.0, you could probably take it up to even like 2 bubbles a second and still be playing it like safe, but have a much higher CO2 rate. But that being said, you might also at that much CO2 be trimming your plants like absolute crazy because that tank is only so tall.
Yeah, and that does make sense. You know, a Fluval, you know, that Flex 16 gallons, it's not a big water volume. So I you know, 1 bubble a second, 1 bubble every 2 seconds. I mean,
yeah, and you could go even more conservative.
I would go conservative because it is a small water volume, and you know the filter that you have on it. Did we say what filter was on it? Probably the built-in one, right?
I would think it's the built-in.
I would imagine. I wouldn't think anybody's going anything crazy on that filtration, but you're probably not going to have a lot of surface agitation the way that tank is kind of set up. So I think I would go maybe even a bubble every 2 seconds, kind of start out a little bit conservative and then work your way up. You're not going to need a ton of CO2, but back in the day when I would set up aquariums nonstop, I would always be setting up aquariums, new scapes, new aquarium, new scape, new aquarium, new scape, constantly. One of the things I would do is just gas the tank with CO2, like just out of control. You know, as fast as the thing would go, just turn it all the way up. But I wouldn't have any fish or critters in there. So you want to bear that in mind, is that basically what I was doing is making a little tiny greenhouse, and just, you know, allowing the most optimal situation for the plants to grow that isn't the dry start method. I'm not a huge fan of the dry start method. I've tried it. Probably, I would say 20, somewhere in the range of 20 to 40 times. I've done it a bunch of times, and it's just too high statistically, in my opinion, to crazy fungus, weird rot, weird things going on. And then once you flood the tank, you still have to kind of convert everything to growing underwater anyhow. So instead of the dry start method, what I used to do is just gas the tank with CO2, but have no fish, no critters, no shrimp, no snails, just nothing in there, just basically substrate, bacteria, water, plants, and just gas it with CO2 as much as crazy as I could. Let it do that for about 2 weeks, and then start introducing fish and things.
So what I will note about the Flex as an owner of a Flex is that if you are using the stock pump that comes with it, that pump is actually far more powerful than it should be for that tank. So if you angle the output heads to give yourself like optimal surface agitation, you actually get pretty good surface agitation. So 1 bubble a second is fine. I mean, if you want to go really crazy, you could do 2, but I would not put critters in it at 2 probably.
Right.
Unless you were really had the plants in very, very healthy before you ever put critters in, and you were seeing tons of purling all over the place to tell you like the water's already hyperoxygenated as is.
Right.
But yeah, I think like 1 and even half, like the nano CO2 kit. Will not go into my opinions about that thing.
Get a big tank.
Or just, go hard and get a big tank.
Get a dual stage regulator with an electronic solenoid on it, and get a 20-pound CO2 tank and just go bonkers. Because I think just from my own perspective, it falls in line with like people doing dirted aquariums, which you should be doing the Wallstad method. Follow the Wallstad method. Don't do your high-tech dirted aquariums. It's dumb. It has too many pitfalls. Way too many pitfalls.
No, I agree. I know so many people that like preach how amazing it is.
I know. There are people that constantly yell at me that like dirted aquariums are the greatest thing that's ever happened, and I'm like,
until you're that like 2% edge case, and then you hate life.
It's way higher than 2%.
I'll be conservative.
If it's 2%, that's 1 out of every 50.
Right.
And it is way higher than 1 out of every 50. I would wager it's like 48 out of 50 have a disaster. There's like, it's probably 2% that have a success rate. That's crazy high. Like, I mean, even the guy that preaches it, like Dustin's Fish Tanks, right? That's the guy who's been screaming about it for 10 years.
Right.
That guy doesn't even have a 98% success rate, right?
Yeah.
So what? Like, like what's going on here? If it's such a good thing, right? Why isn't let's see. Why isn't any of the aquascapers I saw that came to Aquascape at Vivarium doing a dirted aquarium? Is it just corporate dark money?
I don't know about
Is
that.
it just corporate dark money?
The thing that I will say, like the most interesting difference between the European side of the hobby and like our side of the hobby in the U.S. and in some respects Canada, to me.
So there's Canadians there, there's Asians there, there's Europeans there.
No, I understand.
And Americans.
I understand, but so like if you look at your even in your European YouTubers in general, right? Mm-hmm. You will see far heavy prevalence compared to the United States of uses of like your ADA systems and things like your very nice glass rimless tanks, your very expensive substrate systems, your very expensive lighting systems. And like I personally think that some of the lights are way overpriced for what they are.
Well, they are. I mean, it's clear.
But it is interesting to see how the almost unquestioned adoption rate in Europe compared to the United States, where we're like, hey man, what about that $13 light from China? Yeah. Or it's like you're looking for the cheapest thing you can possibly do.
Well, the big problem with that is that a lot of the things that are made in China, right, that have that $13 price tag, it's because they've never gone through the actual, what's it called? UL rating and the
all
testing,
all the certifications.
And the certifications that the damn thing ain't going to burn your house down. It's like, does it work?
Yeah.
Sure. Will it maybe burn your house down while you're out at Applebee's trying to have some jalapeno poppers with your great aunt who called you up that you haven't seen in 20 years? Possibly. You know what I'm saying? You're like, my great aunt who's been lost for 20 years called me up out of the blue from the road because she's a truck driver. I don't know. This is an imaginary person. And you're like, she says she will only eat at Applebee's and she will only eat jalapeno poppers. She's weird,
dude,
right?
man.
And you're like, hey, I was going to do some maintenance on my aquariums, but I haven't seen this person in 20 years. I'm going to go down there. Turns out that was the day that you should have done some maintenance because there's been water accumulation into the LED light that you bought from China that was shipped over pretty much illegally. It's not illegal, but you know what I'm saying. And it was $13 and you saved a bunch of money and then your house burned down. I blame Applebee's.
Well, you know, it's hard to say no to half-price apps at happy hour.
But also at the same time, like a $700 LED, it does not make any sense to me whatsoever.
I mean, I'm gonna watch them side by side very, very soon because I've got a UNS Titan at home.
Right.
And that thing's a $500 light.
Yeah, it's $499, and it's only 36 inches long.
It's 24, sir.
Oh, it's 24
It covers a 24 by 24 square foot pattern.
I literally was trying to find a UNS light that would be 48 inches so I could put it on one of my aquariums.
You will need 2 UNS Titans for that.
For the 120.
For one 120, you will need $1,000 worth of lighting, and that assumes that you're just going to hang them, and you don't want the arm kits.
The arm kits
are
extra.
Those are an optional, like $70 a piece.
I thought I saw a UNS that has legs.
No, it's also an option you can buy. It's like one of those leg kits that goes along the outside of the aquarium, and then you use the metal hangers from the top. It's something. I will say this: like I did some very short temporary testing when I first got the light. So
right.
I didn't buy it new retail. I bought it from a friend who was changing his lighting out of his like really crazy plant farming tank.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a reasonable deal on it, but it still was not cheap at all.
Yeah, you were still driving over there with an uncomfortable amount of cash in your pocket.
It was still an uncomfortable number of American pesos in my pocket.
Right. You're like, I hope it'll get robbed on the way over there.
I was looking at my Beamswork lighting that's on my big rainbow tank, and I brought it into the same room and I plugged it in, and I just aimed it at the tank because it's a ludicrous number of lumens compared to most of the lighting that we use.
Right.
And it was just like you would have thought it was a studio spotlight slamming onto that tank compared to the normal lighting that's on it. And it was like, okay, this thing is potentially a nightmare for someone who has no clue what they're stepping into because it's going to be just like the most algae farm machine known to man.
Yeah.
But the quality of light is very lovely.
It is. I mean, there is
even from 15 feet away.
there is a difference, and and I wouldn't say that there isn't a difference. That is a measurable difference. None of us own the measuring equipment in order to establish that measured difference. I mean, maybe you do. I mean, a par meter is not necessarily what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Measuring per is very hard compared to measuring par.
Yeah, par is easy. Per is problematic.
And unfortunately, I do not have access to a per meter, but I have access to a par meter.
Yeah,
through my club. But it's one of those things where like I kind of just want to see, and it's part of like the whole thing. And we've talked about this before, like what spawned my whole testing lab that I'm working on.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Until pipes blew up in my house and said, you're going to wait on that for a while. But I
should have got UL rated plumbing. That would have been better.
I don't know what it was rated, but it decided it was done. And I really want to be able to show people side by side because you'll look at like Green Aqua, which, phenomenal place. You've been there.
I've been there, yeah.
I want to go there. Phenomenal YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
They make incredible stuff.
Well, that's what's funny is like I found out that Balash and Victor and stuff, do you know they used to be TV guys?
Yeah.
I'm like, I met them in person and they didn't even bother to tell me like, yeah, we make TV shows.
Right.
Because I was like, how do these guys start putting out this production that's just over the top? And by the way, I will say I love the guys from Green Aqua. I had a fantastic time when I was there, and if you are anywhere in Europe, you should try to figure out how to go over there and visit for sure. I love those guys, and this isn't a criticism, but my reaction was like, how are these guys putting out such great YouTube videos? And it's like, oh, it turns out they have the TV crew working with them.
Two of them used to work in TV and are true professionals.
And they also have like 20 people working there. They have like a lot of people working at that place. So it's not like I said, it's not a criticism. It's just one of those GD moments where you're like, man, I've been trying to make videos. Oh, like I'm an idiot.
Oh, that's why.
It's like. But at the same time, like those guys, they spent their last 15. I think when I talked to them, I think they said they had their previous store for 12 years, 15 years, something like that. So this is the next incarnation of them doing well over a long period of time. So it's not.
Well, I think Bosch was in TV for like 15 years.
Yes,
right?
but they also
quite a while too.
They also had a different store.
Right,
That was the ADA store.
Yeah.
So, like, not only did they have ADA stuff, and they've been the ADA reps for a long time, they also had a different store, and this is their new store.
Right.
That they found that was, like, a really good deal. So you got to think, like, they're in Budapest, they're in Hungary. There are some good deals to be had sometimes if they do pop up, and those were the guys that were waiting for, like, we were waiting
deal.
for this location. This is what we've been looking for. So they many years have dedicated going into that work and stuff. So.
But you'll notice like everything they use is something like the ONF flat one, the ADA lights, the ONS Titan.
But I will say this: a lot of that stuff is way cheaper in Europe.
Right, and so that's the thing I also want to stress is that like when I talk about lighting, especially because I'm a really big proponent of the Fluval 3 lights, and I know you are as well because we have good experiences with them.
Right.
And I will very frequently get people, and beside the usual, like, hey, those things are like $600 in Australia. It's not quite the same comparison here.
Yeah, it's not the same.
But, and I recognize that, and I'll get people that are like, oh, it's because you haven't tried XYZ. And it's like, yeah, those are double to triple the price in the United States.
Here. Yeah, and it's the same thing as like with the Australian guys that are like,
if I could get them at the price that I'm sure that you pay for them in like Hungary or something like that, I probably would use them far more regularly than I currently do.
I think the price point is much closer to the Fluval lights here in the U.S. So it's about $200, $200, $300. It's more in that. It's more in that range, and a lot of that has to do with the import.
Right.
Tariffs, blah, 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 all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, trust me, I want to try out the Twin Star stuff. We've been sending out emails to see if we can try some of it. If they have some used testing lights or broken box or something like that we could try out. I would like to do some of those tests side by side. I'm sort of geared up to sort of do some of that here. I'm trying to get rid of my reef. By the way, if anybody wants to buy my reef tank, let me know because it's for sale. It's a 60-gallon cube acrylic. It's got all the lights, rock. It's ready for you to do whatever you want to do to it. You can't have the sump, though. I'm keeping my sump. But skimmers and pumps and all that. I have everything for the reef tank. I have a different sump you can have. You can't have that one. That one's the red.
The trigger?
That's the red trigger.
Yeah.
And
those are nice.
I do not know if I haven't been able to find another red trigger sump in the area. I bet I could order one online or something, but I'm not going through that. That's not.
I mean, I
can't find another red one in the area.
I have a sapphire that's going to go on Animal House.
Yeah.
And that I think I told you my trick to get that cheap, but cheaper.
Yeah.
Cheaper. not cheap, but
not cheap.
But
I literally want a sump company to sponsor my channel, and I'm trying to figure that out. It is troubling.
I have people of my audience who are trying to get me hired by Fluval, which I find hysterical.
Well, there's not a matter of like getting hired by Fluval, because you need to
live in Canada.
No, because they're owned by Hagen.
Right.
So you need to get approval from Rolf Jr., who is the owner. His dad's name was Rolf,
right.
the owner of Hagen.
Rolf C. Hagen.
Rolf Jr. is the owner, operator, and he is an awesome dude. I've met him a couple of times. Fantastic guy. I don't know if anybody out there is going to make any headway with getting him to approve being sponsored by the situation. I'm just saying because
I don't
he's
think...
not of the opinion of like the online marketing and stuff. From just the personal conversations that he and I had.
That's unfortunate.
It's just not his style. It's not his style. It's not his company, like how he wants to run it. And I was like, okay, because it didn't matter. It really didn't matter numbers. Like the numbers didn't really matter to him.
I mean, to be fair, they're huge.
Yeah.
So,
and they're a gigantic company. It's like it's like if I went to Shell Gasoline, right? And I was like, hey, I got a YouTube channel. Can you guys sponsor my YouTube channel? I'll help you sell gas. And they'd be like, we already sell gas all the time. We have gas stations everywhere. And he'd be like, I bring value to your oh, crap. Like that's the reality is that like there's just it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I would love, like I said, I got the sponsorship from some of the Fluval lights.
Right.
For them to sponsor just, hey, here's a guy, we'll approve you to get some of these lights to try them out. That was basically it. It wasn't like, they're like, you're going to make a video about it? And it's like, yeah. And they were like, okay. And then they checked out if I made videos about it, and I did. And they were like, yep, cool. That exists. But Fluval is also making their own YouTube videos. So go to their YouTube channel. They make their own YouTube videos. And I've noticed that most companies are going that way. Most companies that are large enough, they're just taking their own workers and making a YouTube channel with them.
And I will say this, I've had interactions with Eric, who is part of Fluval. And he's a super, super nice guy. And he's on the YouTube channel. Like you'll see him everyone there. He's not usually the face. That's usually Tom, who's typically the face of a lot of their videos.
Everyone I met at Fluval, everyone I met
super
at
nice
Hagen,
dude.
Everyone I met at Hagen, everyone from top to bottom, awesome people. I have nothing disparaging to say about that company or anything like that. They were all awesome. So I'm just putting that. I'm interjecting that.
So I'm gonna ask you a question. What's your favorite Anubias?
My favorite Anubias?
Yeah,
I put it up there.
Uh-oh.
Which one is it?
Because in those three pictures, one is one that I like a lot and I have.
What do you got?
Pangolino.
Yeah, you got Pangolino?
I do.
I was going to order some more.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
I lost mine.
I love that plant. It's so cool.
I tied it to something and put it in a sump and forgot about it.
Tiny.
Yeah. So I do have some Pangolino little sproutlets in a sump. But they're nothing that I would even try to put on film at this point. They're so small. It's like, oh, hey, that's tiny. Yeah, bruh.
Mine's getting moved because it was in the shallow tank.
Oh, yeah.
And the shallow tank's getting torn down.
Oh, okay.
Because my house has the most horrible wiring known to man. And in order to get proper power to Animal House, I have to take 3 other smaller tanks down.
Oh.
Because I need their power or I'll start breaking circuits.
Breaking?
Yeah. It's not sound good.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
It's not me, but I know a guy.
I've been put in touch.
I was just saying. I wasn't saying anything
too.
about your electrical or anything like that. I was just saying I know a guy. I don't know why I brought that up, but I was just.
I know.
Hey, I know a guy.
I just know him. I just know the guy.
I just wanted you to know that I said I know a guy.
But I like the Pangolino quite a lot. As far as a small Anubias, I think the Pangolino is probably my favorite.
It's probably the coolest, I would say, of the smalls.
Of the big Anubias, though.
Of the big Anubias?
What's your favorite?
It's up there. Hostifolia.
Hostifolia?
Hostifolia is my favorite large.
You like the real big boy.
Yeah.
So I really love the leaf shape and texture of Cophifolia.
Yeah.
It's just, it's such a unique appearance. And similar but smaller is like the golden coin. Because they have very similar like leaf texture and shape.
Yeah, they do.
Just
actually,
the Cophifolia is so much bigger, and I think that's why I like it, because it's those big, huge, broad leaves, and they're beautiful.
It gets so monster, though.
Yeah.
And then,
but that's why I like them. And they
but the
keep
one
that
down,
cool,
the one
like,
downside,
wrinkly pattern to them.
well, that big downside is that like most people don't have a big enough tank for it.
Sure.
And the reason I say they don't have a big enough tank for it is because once it gets super big and starts growing towards the light, algae festival,
Yeah.
times 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the coolest one, the coolest was Cophifolia and Barteri and the large Barteri, and Fraseri and what was the other one? There was one other one in there. It doesn't matter. There's this guy in Arizona that turned his whole. Okay, so just to give you an idea, like a 12,000 square foot house, super rich guy, right?
Whew.
He turned his whole giant living room into an atrium with underwater features.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a pond, water was pumped around, the whole roof was a greenhouse, so it was using Arizona sun to grow everything. And that guy was growing Anubias like all over the place. And it's so jealous of the years of that guy posting up on because he would always post all these like update pictures
Yeah.
onto one of the forums I used to be a part of that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, man.
And that was just like, I want to live. Can I just like hang out and
Can I just put up a hammock?
Can I live in your house? Can I live in your house? I want to live in your house, bro. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, and to be brutally honest, like that kind of stuff is like just so out of this world. It's like you, as a human, you can't even think like, well, I'd like to do that someday, because it's just like these crazy numbers, like, well, we had to remodel this and that, and it was $6 million. Like,
So I have what I've referred to as the eccentric millionaire wish list.
oh yeah,
So I mentioned this in I did a video called My Dream Tank, and it's like one of those things where like if you ever won like a Powerball or one of those nonsensical lottos that you can't possibly win because the math is ridiculous on them.
Yeah.
But I have what I call like my eccentric millionaire like wish list, and one of those things was basically like my own personal like 50,000 gallon miniature rainbow lake.
oh yeah.
Just to make my own like Lake Ayumaru or something.
It's doable. I mean,
Yeah, it only cost you like $500 or $600.
I think like
That's
I think the best way to do it would be to stack shipping containers.
Yeah.
And I mean by stack, but I mean like lengthwise.
Right.
So you just cut out the centers,
Right.
and just keep going.
Or find a way to get like one of the giant tanks that a former aquarium had when they shut down.
Oh yeah, that's pretty rare though.
Well, I mean, there's a few of them though.
But you just have to wait forever.
And then you have to somehow figure out how you transport that dang thing.
Oh yeah, I don't know how you move around like
Not
2
all
foot
of-
thick sheets of
Not all of us
acrylic.
can be like Bill Wan or that's his name, right? Bill Wan.
Yeah, Bill.
And like just like, oh yeah, I built myself my 20,000 gallon reef, and I didn't like any of the RO units on the market, so I built my own.
Yeah, just made my own.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
How much did you spend on this? I don't know, 500,000-600,000. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
I just developed it. I have all the tooling and everything to do it, and
like,
the CAD design to
what?
make it. Yeah, it's crazy. Let me check in with the live chat. Have you seen anything in the live chat that we should be answering? It seems like everybody's kind of just talking amongst themselves.
We've had some lovely conversation. I think there's some mentions of Jimmy's talk that he did very recently.
Uh-huh.
Which
I think
apparently he was very nervous about.
I think he was doing a talk like yesterday or something.
I think he did one yesterday. I think he's got another one today.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. But yeah, he's did kind of the same loop that Dean did recently, where he's doing San Francisco and then was it Sacramento or San Diego as well? I think it's San Diego.
Okay. That makes sense. Ginger Graves says she plans to change the light. Got a Fluval Nano plant light. I love those things. Have you had the Fluval Nano plant light? That little
I haven't had
rectangular
a
one?
Nano yet, just because most of my tanks are big enough that they require the big boy.
Yeah. I got one I'm running the Refugium on my reef.
Oh, okay.
With it. Mm-hmm.
But I got some short introductions to them at AGA because they had those on all those Fluval Flora kits.
Yeah.
That they used for the aquascaping workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very nice. They're basically just a miniature 3.0.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly different LED design because it's technically like a round light in how they house it.
No, not the round one, the rectangular one.
Well, yeah, but if you flip it over, its design it's the same style LEDs, but they're kind of designed closer to a circular pattern. They're still,
okay.
They're
I
still
thought
rectangular, but
It's
okay.
Basically
I
thought
the
you were
same
getting
light.
confused by the cob.
No, not that weird
okay.
thing. No,
that one's weird. Don't buy the cob. It's terrible.
Don't. It's no.
I mean, it works fine, but it's terrible. Don't do it.
Yeah, no. I like
almost all the cob LEDs out there suck, even if they're
the whole like
even if they're like $900 Kessels, they still suck.
I will say like Kessel, whether
is that rude? Yeah,
whether it's intentional or not, Kessel has one of like the greatest poorly marketed marketing ploys.
Oh my god,
out there, and then like the shimmer that their lights produce is so beloved by people.
Oh yeah.
That, and I swear they don't like market it correctly because it's so loved and it's almost like treasured for the people who are really into it. It's like, oh, why would you want any other light? You don't get that shimmer. And it is a cool effect. Do not get me wrong. I have some like tuna suns at my house that are a part of test lab. But it's funny to me because I look at like how the lights perform and how I look at them with my naked eye if I ignore the shimmer. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know that it's worth that much.
Yeah.
But then again, I haven't set it up for a long period of time. But we do have a good question from Barbara Jackson.
I just noticed that too. She's wondering about Anubias rot. And I'm going to be honest with you that all of the research out there currently, whether it be anecdotal or not, is that it has not been identified yet. They don't know what it is. Cut it out and get rid of it. If you get if you get an Anubias that has that rot, cut any of the rotten off and be kind of dramatic with how much you're cutting off. Like, don't cut it off right there. Cut it off farther down the rhizome and move that plant to another tank so that you don't potentially infect the other Anubias that you have. Anubias should be, at this point, you should quarantine it for a little bit because you want to make sure that it doesn't have rot. You don't want to introduce rot into your tanks. None of the Anubias farms out there know what it is, whether it be the ones that I've talked to in Europe, the ones that I've talked to in America, they don't know. And I haven't really talked to any in Asia, but I'm assuming unless they've figured it out in the last short amount of time, they haven't really identified it from anybody that I've been able to inside scoop. And let me tell you something about the farms. They want to know what it is because that's their livelihood. That's how they feed their children. They want to know what it is.
So one thing that I will say from a perspective of observation between me and some we'll put advanced hobbyist friends, maybe is the best way to put it. Like some of my more rare plant collector friends, is that when you are doing that cut to cut the rot away, you really want to make sure that you're using like a razor blade or something extremely sharp that has minimal like crush power to it. So if you're using like your standard aquascaping scissors, they're going to crush part of that rhizome a little bit more. And we have, through observation, seen that when you use a razor blade and it like a brand new fresh one, you want it as sharp as can be, you are less likely after chopping it away to see a recurrence of the rot with a sharper, very minimal crushing impact type cut than you are if you were to use like aquascaping scissors, where they're going to put a little bit of crush down on the edges of that rhizome before making the cut. And it's a really kind of weird, and it's nowhere near enough data to be scientifically accurate.
No.
But it's an observation we've had so far between me and about 7 other people when dealing with Anubias rot for some of the stuff that's been coming in, that whether it's rare or even just common Anubias we've picked up to do something in a tank, we've had the best success taking that method in order to prevent further Anubias rot from occurring after we've cut away the rot. So, random tip, I can't guarantee it works, but it's just an observation that me and some other people have had.
Yeah.
And yeah, plural singularity is being good here. Make sure the blade is really sterile. Like that's
Yeah.
why I'll usually say a fresh blade, but you could very much like, dunk it in hydrogen peroxide or something to really get it a good clean.
Yeah, you want something. So what I use typically for Anubias, and it's basically Anubias is kind of the only one that I really use something like this with. Most other plants, I just use my aquascaping scissors. But something like this, an X-Acto blade that you can just change out the blade on. It's really cheap. I buy the 100 pack of these blades, and they last forever. But when you get 100 of them, you will realize just exactly how many of these are. But you get the X-Acto blades. It's like 100 pack. I think it was like $7 and came in this little cardboard crappy box from Amazon.
Yeah, they're not expensive.
And this is really what you want for doing any of the cuts on Anubias realistically. I know that I've made videos where I just used my scissors, but realistically, you always kind of want to use something sharp with most every Anubias anyhow. And I should take my own lessons to heart better at times because I know that I killed a bunch of shrimp one time because I was cutting a ton of Anubias fraseri. And that releases a lot of, and I'm trying to think of what the toxin is called, and I don't want to say neurotoxin because that's not right, but it releases a toxin into the water that actually killed off a bunch of my shrimp, which was a disaster. But that was a long time ago, and now I just don't keep fraseri anymore. But the three that we have posted here, so we've got the hostifolia, that's my favorite big one. We have the Anubias Barteri Nana, right? Nana and the Nana Petite. Those are my favorite middle ones for sure. And we managed to get Bentley's favorite small one. But what's your favorite middling one? Because we got your favorite small one there, which is the Pangolino,
right? The
chili, which I want to get more of that. And I literally was on Boost Plants' website. I had it in my cart. And then they didn't have their Polka stamen Downeye. Yeah. If I'm saying that right, I don't know.
Downeye.
Downeye. Downeye in Australia.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I know. I'm not an accent guy, or an impressions guy. But that got sold out while I was in my shopping cart. Like somebody bought it while I was like wanting to buy one. Yeah, I don't know. So then I was like, oh, never mind. I guess I'll not get that, but I should have just ordered some.
So before I say the species, just Cheryl Evans asked, and Candy kind of answered, but I'll address just to make sure it's heard, just in case somebody's listening, not watching chat all that much.
Right.
So when Anubias rot, when you see it, typically the Anubias is going to be a yellow or brown color. Yellow is very early, brown is very late in the stage. It will be mushy, where it's kind of like when any kind of stem plant or anything rots away. It's very similar where it just kind of turns to mush. It'll be a brown or yellowish color instead of the bright green that we're used to. And basically, if you start squeezing on the rhizome and it doesn't feel relatively firm, that's a dead giveaway that you're starting to run into that problem.
Right.
Or that you had, when it was cut, it was an improper cut and there was too much crushing power on the rhizome, and that part of the rhizome will eventually just die. It might not show true Anubias rot, but it will die off until it gets to a more healthy portion of the rhizome.
Yeah.
So for a middle, I really like the golden coin a lot. But again, it's because its leaf shape is so similar to Cophifolia, and that kind of crinkly texture that it gets when it goes to the veins of the leaf. It's just something that I like a lot in how Anubias appears, where like, Fraseri has that big, smooth leaf with that kind of spearhead point to it. Mm-hmm. That's pretty and all, but those like crinkly leaves are a different texture than what I see in any other plant. And whenever I can get a color or texture that's completely different from anything else I'm going to put in a tank, and I can spot it like a mile away, that's something that is really appealing to me personally. Just kind of how I am.
It makes sense.
Although I will say the other one that I like a lot is the Nana Golden, because when you get that lime green color out of the leaf when they're young,
yeah,
they're really pretty.
Yeah, and it's really nice to watch them grow too, because it's like it catches the eye.
Yeah,
you're like, whoa, what's going on over here? It's a brightness coming on. Oh, hey, Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. So what were we moving on to? We were going to move on to something. I forget. I don't know.
Can I pick a plant species?
Yes.
Can I pick something I both love and hate at the same time?
Yes.
Polka stamen.
Oh God.
I love it, but I hate how fast it grows.
It's a nightmare. It's like a personal affront.
That Polka
like,
stamen octopus
you better
is
come
pretty
trim
cool.
this tank. It's like the tank's like calling me while I'm at work, you know. Hey, you better come back here and trim me, you know. Like, oh God.
Did you wait 5 minutes? I'm 3 foot long now.
All right, so let's go. Erectus should probably be our first little picture.
I think that's a strong one.
Right?
It's a very strong one.
Let me find an image. So why don't you talk about Pogostemen erectus and how much fun you have with that one?
So,
is that Pogostemen or is this is a misidentified picture? Sorry.
Uh-oh.
I'm talking out loud.
Now I want to know what got put up.
That is not Pogostemen erectus. Okay.
So I think that's becoming like the new popular kid on the street,
It
so
is.
to speak.
It's really cool.
Which it's a great plant. I know it's like one of Candy Overhaul's probably favorite plants, period.
Yeah.
I like that it has effectively 2 very different looks. So with CO2, you get these hyper dense like needle leaves, basically, where they literally just like little sticks coming out. That's really similar to several other species of like rotalas that have that kind of like almost cat's tail or feather duster type look to them. But it's super unique in a Pogostamen.
Mm-hmm.
Where when it's in CO2, it's hyper dense. When you get it no CO2, it will still be fine, but they're far more spaced out. So it has this kind of weird, like where it's just like spike, spike, instead of like just millions of them in a row. And you can do things like we were commenting about this earlier while we were doing some just random chatting before the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you keep your stem, you trim it, and you replant it, trim it and replant it, like yours are, you get this lovely like pinkish red color in the very top that takes time to develop, where mine is in a 40 breeder and it just kind of hits the top of the water and then just spreads out and out and out. So I have this super dense like cluster that's like a sixth of an entire 40 breeder and almost more now, where it's almost like a third of the entire tank.
Mm-hmm.
Of this just field of bright green needle leaves, but they're so dense together that it just looks like this huge bush, and it's phenomenal looking. Mm-hmm. And it lets me every once in a while go like, oh yeah, I could probably sell some of that plant now. I do have like a third of my tank being taken over by it.
That makes sense.
But I don't sell it that often because I like it so much.
Yeah, I wish I'd, the unfortunate side is, and I know a lot of people get mad at me for this, but it's the amount of time that I have to dedicate to like shipping something is ultimately the problem. It's like I would love to sell a bunch of my extra plants and stuff, but I just don't necessarily have the available time to like really make it happen, because like even if I pack something today, like I don't want to ship something out and have it wait around on Sunday, right? An extra day in the mail. So I'd want to send it out on Monday, but I don't want to pack it today, have it sit here and send it out on Monday. It's just, it's kind of chaos. So I would like to sell more, but if there was a way that people could just come by, not my house, but somehow come by my house, but not without coming by. Does that make sense? Like,
go to the end of the block.
Yeah.
Look for the box labeled with your name.
There's a box on the ground. It has your name on it, and it's probably your stuff.
You should probably pick it up in a small window.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want it staying out there too long. It might just disappear.
It might disappear. Somebody might think it was Amazon something or other. Oh, here's one I'm going to add in. And let's see if you can identify it. Because this is one that I am actually bringing in very soon to my fish room. The middle one, I'm sure you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
That Hellfire Eye. Downy Eye.
Downy
Eye.
Now, are you getting the regular one or are you getting the red?
No, not that one. That's not the one I'm worried about.
Oh, okay.
I know that you know that one. This is the one that I'm wondering if you actually know about. But you have Hellfairy. I've grown Hellfairy a bunch of times. It's just been a long time, and it feels right to me to bring it back into my fish room.
I have yet to grow Hellfairy, either the standard or the red variety.
You never have?
I have a lot of friends who've had it, and every time I've been like, oh, I'll get it later. Oh, I'll get it later. Oh, I'll get it later. And it's going to be one of the first plants, I guess, spoiler alert, in the high-tech testing lab.
Spoiler alert!
Will be the Downoi Red, because the red's actually harder to keep.
Yeah.
It's a super finicky plant, but our water is basically designed to keep it correctly because it likes really soft water.
Well, if you can get me some red, I would love to. I don't know where to order it from.
I know a couple guys.
That would be ultimately my problem.
I know a couple guys.
Generally speaking, I'm not going to drive over to somebody's house for one plant.
Also, the one of the guys that you previously got plants from, who's right by my house. He
nice dude.
Yeah, he had a really good Downoi Red farm going, and I think he's still doing that. I think that's like one of the only high tech plants he kept because he completely changed what he was doing because of his work schedule changed where he couldn't hyper manage all his high tech plants anymore. So he went to like a high tech tank with nothing but rare boosts and Anubias. And it's the kind of stuff where it's like, oh yeah, it was farmed once.
Oh yeah.
Like 6 total plants left the country, and then somebody destroyed the habitat for a palm farm.
Ooh.
So 10 people in the United States have it. Good luck getting it. Oh, he's one of those people.
Oh, cool.
I get you.
Well,
so my instinct, looking at the leaf but not looking at the color, is that it looks a lot like Polka stamen Kimberly.
Nope.
But the color is not correct to be Kimberly unless it was immersed. So I'm curious which one that is.
That's Samsonii.
Oh, okay.
And it is Samsonii has been on my list for a long time, and I just never. It's like the Hellfairy, like for you.
Yeah.
It's like, it's bad. Like, I'll get to it.
Yeah. Mine's mostly been like, I know all these people that have it. I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah. And then I realized, like, I don't really know anybody that really has it anymore.
I haven't seen that on the market for a while.
Some has popped up on the market, so I have ordered some, and it's going to be coming in. So I'm like, I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but my whole situation has become collectoritis times 10, and it's going to continue until I lose my mind and shave my head. And
you're starting to get worse than I am.
It will get worse. It will get incredibly worse from what it is now.
I've got a plant I know that you're going to want once I grow more of it out.
What's that?
So we would be skipping species, but we'd be going into the Staragines.
Oh yeah.
And I have Staragine Bihar.
Oh, okay.
Or Bihar, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
Yeah. The pronunciations of everything is like, somebody will correct me and you'll be like, are you sure?
How sure are you?
How sure are you?
Because I'm sure that like somebody out there is going to tell us that Rotala Atra is not supposed to be pronounced Atra, but everyone pronounces it Atra.
Yeah, it's like, is this supposed to be hurrah? Is that what you're supposed to say?
It's very joyous. It's very joyous, Rotala.
It's very joyous. Hurrah! Huzzah! So yeah, I mean that's honestly one of those things. It's like, unless somebody's a Latin expert, just okay, we'll just go with the accepted what you got, and it's fine. You're like, oh, I've heard it like this, because I think that's what most people are doing. Is they're just like, I've heard it like this a bunch of times, and that's their like immediate reaction.
It sounds vaguely Latin-like.
Yeah, and it's like, okay,
good enough for me.
Yeah, so it's always that funny thing where you're just like, why is that guy calling me out? We're gonna fight him. Like, no, we're not.
I had a similar like go around in the sense of like you're pronouncing it wrong and me going like, are we really sure with Pelvicochromis? Because you get like, you have the standard, the Pulcher, right, which is your atypical crib, and then there's the like 10,000 different catch location variations of the Teniatus.
Right.
And it was like, I originally pronounced it Teneatus.
Okay.
Instead of Teniatus.
Teniatus.
And like, somebody was going back.
I mean, I could see where you're coming from.
Right. And it was just like me kind of looking at it, and I'm like, I don't know Latin. Mm-hmm. It's a dead language.
Right.
But we still use it, so I guess it's not dead.
It's a dead language.
But it's faux Latin, so it's not real.
That's the weird thing. Like I took a bunch of Latin when I was a kid, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't exist in my brain because you don't like it's not in use. You're not like, I mean, obviously it's in use, but like I read things 100 times more than I ever say them, and I
Right.
probably say things more than most people. You know what I mean? Like, and say it wrong, and then I get corrected. You're like, okay.
And my only argument with it until like I basically changed how I pronounced it just so that he'd shut up.
Yeah,
just so that I
It's like,
wouldn't
okay.
I wouldn't have to have the argument anymore. As a club member, and he's a great guy and he's
Yeah.
nice, but he was just like he's really particular when it comes to the things that he's very knowledgeable of, and he was like he's a big small cichlid guy.
This is why I don't go to clubs.
My problem is like I love my club meetings so much.
I love the GSAS, and I love a lot of the people there. You know,
but
like I don't.
yeah.
And
when it finally
there's
got
a lot
done-
of people at every club meeting I've gone to that are stressing me out.
yeah
You know,
little
like they're stressing me out. I don't have a better way to say it, but like, man, like bro, you're stressing me out.
Well, I
Like,
think a lot of it is like in any niche hobby,
Mhm.
and you could even get on me for saying niche instead of niche,
niche.
right? But
Is it a niche or
I
a
like
niche?
niche. It just sounds better to me.
It
so
does. Sounds more natural.
It just that you will get people drawn to it who are inherently very socially awkward,
Right.
and not necessarily like people who like want to throw the flag of autism around in any way, shape, or form, but it's like you will get people who like might just inherently be that kind of sledgehammer of a person who's like where you almost think that Asperger's is appropriate because there's no give. It's just
Well, that's the
straight
problem.
at
Is
you.
that like there might actually be somebody with
And there could be.
Asperger's
And there
there.
could
Like
be.
I don't know someone's background. If you just
but it's one of those things
if
where
you
it's
just
like
come at me all of
you
a sudden.
get a lot
It's
of
like, I
people
don't
and
know.
like people like us who are far more extroverted personality types.
I'm an introverted extrovert. So
Right.
I do a ton of stuff that's introverted. Like I spend time by myself. I meditate.
But you are very
I
social.
I sit quietly and listen to 200 decibel death metal until my ears bleed. But I'm also like there's a point in time where I did LSD for like 400 days straight.
Holy
And there's just
moly.
a part of you that just dies, and it's that part where like you really just don't care that much anymore about like what's happening. But I do care. Like I have a caring, loving heart, and I don't want to ever offend anybody or whatever.
Yeah.
But like there's a part where it's just like, I don't know, man, I just gotta be like hey man, what's going on? Like, all right, that's what we're doing. Like it just doesn't matter that much.
Like, for
But I
me-
do have to give a shout out real quick. We have to hold on. Sidebar. Valerie Van Zyl became a new member during the show. Shout out to Val. Thank you very much for becoming a member. That is big time. And a brick for a brick with a $1 super chat sticker
Ooh.
with the smiley face. We gotta dig that. And a regular comment from the chat from Plural Singularity says, I have to pick up a Sarah or Salifert KHGH test. My API registers something crazy. Yes, I agree. Get the Sarah one or the Salifert KH and GH test kit. The API one is not the most accurate, and if you start getting weird readings from the API test kit, get the Sarah, the SERA one, and I'll find a link for you guys. But that's the best. That's the best kit around, big time. So okay, now back to where we were at with dealing with
So
not knowing people's backgrounds, and it's difficult to go to club meetings.
yes, this is one of those things where like you, as somebody who is pretty extroverted in general, like one of my early jobs out of college was interning in the promotions department for a radio station, which basically meant that like every live event they do, which is a lot, I was the person who was out there greeting every fan because the radio talent was still on air somewhere, and you had to have you're giving away T-shirts and all this nonsense, and like you cannot be an introverted person and do that job. Like you just can't, because your brain will melt. because you go to an event and like I worked for a small jazz radio station, right? Which you've lived here long enough, you'll know Smooth Jazz. It's 98.9 KWJZ. I used to work for.
KW.
And big.
Did you say JZ?
No, it'd be 98.9 Smooth Jazz KWJZ.
JZ.
We're not British, bro. But
why not?
Because America. But I can remember going to those events and just like, as somebody who is really into, rock, some early hip hop, and in general electronic music, and thinking to myself like, how big a following can jazz actually have? And then just being blown away that like you go to an event and it's like, oh, there's this teeny tiny, we're just appearing somewhere with a small tent to meet people, and 500 people show up.
Right.
Because they're so fanatical compared to some of the more mainstream music that's out there, that like any opportunity to interact with other jazz fans and the people who work at the station they love, they're there. And it like blew my mind as a young like college kid how I perceived the culture around certain types of music, because I was always like, oh yeah, maybe if it's a like little jazz club, it'd be like 20-30 people there, it's all relaxed, it's chill,
right?
You got your atypical cigar smoking jazz fan. What
was the name of that club? Tula's is
one. There's several of them.
Tula's in Belltown?
Yeah.
That place used to be awesome.
Tula's was really nice.
Sorry.
Well, and you still have like, even though like smooth jazz doesn't exist anymore, right? And it's one of the sad parts of like when radio formats change and you were part of that radio culture in any way, shape, or form, when it changes, it's very depressing, because it has this like, and I'm not a huge, like, I would not listen to smooth jazz on the radio.
Right.
Ever. But I love like swing. I love that old like Duke Ellington era swing jazz is the stuff that actually interests me, because it's influenced so much music that we listen to nowadays, right?
Yeah.
But every live event I ever went to for smooth jazz, even though I was easily half the age of like 75% of the people there, was some of the most fun I ever had, because it's just some of the most warm and welcoming people. And it's a lot like the aquarium hobby, in that if you go to any place where a bunch of fish nerds are going to be,
right,
in general, they're very warm, welcoming people, no matter what you keep, no matter like what you like, whether you like plants or you like flower horns, you like tetras, you like predatory cichlids, like everybody is just, to say it jazzed, that another fish nerd is there and you can babble about fish.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. Like I think it almost influences how much I love fish hobby, because the crowd is so similar, in the sense that you get people together that have that hobby, and it's just like super happy environment. And all you want to do is babble about what you love, and then listen to what other people love, and just be like, yeah, we love this nerdy thing together, and you're done. And very rarely have I found, in my experience thus far, too many like, how dare you like that arguments in fish, except for like online forums. But when you're in person, it's always like this super wonderful experience. Like AGA might be like one of the great examples where we got to like just sit and BS with people.
Right.
Who like, like Zenzo was there and he keeps African cichlids. Where like, we keep freshwater planet aquariums. Well, then you've got, guys like Corey who are like, oh yeah, I have this like 2-foot long puffer.
Right.
Like, or whatever. But we're all just like nerds who are just happy to babble about the fish we love. And like, oh, you like that fish? Yeah, that's cool. It's like, it's got XYZ colors that I don't get in mine, and I think they're cool.
Right.
Or like, oh, it does this cool thing, or it chomps through clams, or what, pick your poison, as far as like, or that person is like, yeah, I like the weird ugly brown fish that I see twice a year.
Oh yeah.
But when I see it, it's so cool. It's like, fish nerds are so great in that fashion. I know this is the weirdest tangent chat. I'm sorry, but
no, it's fine.
It's one of those things where like,
we do a long format show.
Yeah, I mean,
here.
It happens, but it's one of those things that I find very interesting as I get older.
Well, here, okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject here with a bit of a air quote commercial.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair.
We do have a Patreon page. Bentley also has a Patreon page. If you want to help sponsor what it is that we do, what it is that we're doing, and if you want to see the future of what we're doing, and you want to help out for as little as like $1 a month, you can go over to Patreon, become a member there. I don't know if Bentley has the join button yet. Do you have memberships for your channel?
Wow. Okay, so I get to do a spoiler on your channel that I haven't said even to my own audience. I have qualified for memberships, and I don't know how, but I have not enabled them yet because I'm trying to get badges built and,
okay,
and emotes.
cool. Yeah.
I want to have that all done.
Oh, that's right.
We're
gonna talk about that today.
You're the only person outside of my girlfriend who knew that ahead of time.
I didn't know that you were going to get memberships, and that's what you were asking me about.
Yeah.
For the badges. But that makes sense now.
Yeah, I'd asked it because I couldn't figure it out. I was like, how do I have it at 5,000 subscribers? I thought I had to be at 30,000.
They've been lowering how many subscribers you have.
Yeah.
To allow people in. They started out with if you only have 1 million subscribers, and then they went like 500,000, and then they went 100,000, and then they went 50,000. So they've been the smaller channels, instead of having everyone come all at once and become members on every channel, they started out with these smaller groups of channels. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's less channels that have 1 million subscribers, but there's 1 million channels that have 1 subscriber.
So
right?
I will say this. What I would suggest, just as a part of our minor break here, is if you go to specifically your Patreon,
right?
So that's Joel_C. You have very dedicated Patreon days in your streams, which is part of why you're the only person I have a thing on Patreon for.
Oh,
because I love every once in a while, like when I can find some small bits of spare time, I will go to your community to look at like what people are posting, because you got folks like Johan who always have the fish of the week,
right?
And all this like cool stuff, or like Preston John puts up all sorts of really cool things, because he does like crazy live food experiments and fun puffer things and all this stuff,
right?
It's I think one of the funnest parts compared to other aquarium channels, because mine's not that interesting yet. I work too much for my own good, but I think it's one of the most unique and interesting parts of any Patreon in the aquarium hobby that you do, and it's like the probably the unique reason why you're the only person that I like support on Patreon.
Oh,
so there you go. You guys know why I support Joel.
I gotta check the front porch. Is that why, or is it because we're friends? Oh, someone's ringing the doorbell.
Both, but more like I would rather do, say, me personally, but I know a lot of people like don't like going to exterior sites. Like I would do Patreon over YouTube membership.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people
because of that community section that you do,
and there's a lot of people that don't want to go to an external site, start a new. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't want to do that, and that's why we have the membership on YouTube. That's why I put it in. Obviously, it's a great way to support any channel that you want to support. But the main support comes from Patreon. I love that people become members on YouTube. Somebody was asking, what do you get for becoming a member? One of the biggest things that you can get is once you become a member, you can go to my community tab and you can find access to our Discord, which is a separate chat that is 24 hours a day. People post pictures in there, talk back and forth about things that are going on. There's just a bunch of people in there having conversations about fish stuff all of the time in text and images. Same thing with Patreon. Patreon's a great way to go and be in the community there and do that kind of stuff. So, but my main pitch thing was, if you want to see more of me and Bentley and I, or us together or us separately or anything like that, today is the day. Is a perfect opportunity to be like, hey, go to my Patreon, go to Bentley's Patreon, or become a member, or whatever you want to do to support it. This is basically what Bentley and I want to do full time. And it really boils down to, and we talked about it earlier, the big giant companies, they don't really want to do it. I've gone outside of fish companies now for sponsorship, because it's a real thing. It's a real number. Like, I love getting stuff to test. Like, that's great. But I don't even consider that to be any kind of sponsorship, because if somebody has a product that I really like, I will go and I will work and I will make money and I will give it to the person that's selling it. You know what I'm saying? Like Bentley saw the elephant skin stone that I have.
Cool. That stuff's so cool
just
looking.
I know, it just came in yesterday. I saved up $100 from my paychecks and I bought some of that because I wanted to see what it was like from the people that are selling it. I don't have anything to do with them, but that's like a perfect example. Is like I will just get I will get it. If it's a product that's so good, I will get it. And I appreciate the companies that send out stuff to test, but those companies don't really want to fund stuff. Whereas, over on my Patreon page, it's all public. You guys can see how much money is coming in every month, how many people are on there. It's 254 people at like $1,400 a month is what really funds being able to do these shows, pay for lights and cameras and bandwidth. Like I have to get fiber optic run here. Which, it's not that big of a deal. Like I didn't have to physically do it myself. Literally, I had to hire CenturyLink and be like, run the fiber optic to my house.
Actual fiber at my house, but nobody provides true fiber, and I have to deal with the devil that is Comcast because it's the best internet
I fired Comcast and I hired CenturyLink.
I wish I could.
I can't get TV here through CenturyLink though.
Really?
I have to get. They don't have the Prism TV.
Yeah.
Which I like their Prism TV package
Mm-hmm.
because you can literally be like, oh, I want half of the channels, and they're like, oh, cool, yeah, have those.
Yeah, they don't have the weird arbitrary packages.
Yeah, you don't have to like get everything
Comcast
or
does.
whatever. So, Sam Malone with a $2 super chat, and then he said my message didn't send. So I'm not sure what his message is.
Put it in chat, Sam. We'll get it.
Put it in chat. We'll highlight you and try and get it.
I just wanted to note that I saw something hysterical in chat. Somebody referenced my using my radio voice as smoother than Barry White on a slip and slide. Which is about the funniest
it's pretty good.
descriptor of my voice I've probably ever heard.
I like that. That's pretty solid. Somebody brought up we don't have enough likes on the video. I guess I hit the like button, I guess. So we got to say the YouTube crap. If you're not subscribed, become a subscriber today and hit the button and blah, blah, blah. And no, we don't have any Lamborghinis around here, but, I actually was talking about this on yesterday's show. I was like, I would never waste the money on a Lamborghini. I would buy a giant fish tank. So some people would say that's dumb. Somebody was asking for a link to this mug that I drink out of that says coffee makes me poop. I posted it in the chat today, and maybe I'll post it in the comments or something at some point in time. But I did post the GH and KH test kits from Amazon. Amazon is an affiliate, so I have to tell you that if you go buy stuff through our link, it does give us a kickback. It doesn't change the price, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the drill. And so now we shall continue onward and upward and onward. And Randall Bowman just shared something to my Patreon community. Thank you, Randall. I'll see what it is later when I have a chance. Actually, I could probably look at it right now. Why not? We'll just go off the rails.
So jealous of Desert Fish Keeper.
Oh, cool.
75 a month for 500 up and down. Whew.
I have 1.2 gig.
I'm even more jealous of you.
And it's parallel. Oh, suck it.
Where I can get
even here on the network down in the basement, right?
Yeah.
So I have it networked from upstairs down to a switch off of one. I still have 300 parallel.
Switch or router?
It's a switch. Off of the router from upstairs.
Well,
I don't need to explain to you or the rest of the world exactly how this works. Now, it's also run through multiple VPN services, so that is the bottleneck.
Yeah.
Because I'm running off of other servers that say I'm in Algeria or Zambia or wherever it happens to say that I am, that's bouncing off another VPN that makes it 300 parallel instead of 1.2. But if I go direct off the router upstairs, it's like when you put basically when you run like Ukola, you say Ukla, the speed test.
Yeah,
it just goes like this, and then it's like
a lot.
What do I do? Yeah, and you're like
all of it.
Oh my god, I was just freaked out, and it's kind of off the chart. So I am happy with my deal, but I did notice that Like Bernie Sanders, did you see that? He came up with he just released the possible broadband to the U.S. as part of his platform.
That's good.
Because there's so much of the U.S. that, by the way, I whether you're in agreement with Bernie Sanders or not, I think most Americans should understand that the utility that is the internet, the fiber optic, should have been run by the government the same way the phone lines were, the same way the power lines were, the same way that stuff was all put in. And I do not understand how it's 2019 and there's some kind of like weird thing about how like the government can't run any programs, or the government does something, they're going to waste a bunch of money. And by the way, I've done a bunch of work for the government, and where the money gets wasted, subcontractors. And who do you think subcontractors are? Do you think they're the government? I'm looking at you, Wilder Construction. That's right, calling you out on the. I don't care. It is the subcontractors is where that money goes, man. There's like subcontractors will realize that the government's in a hard spot because the taxpayers have levied that it has to be done. Suddenly, the subcontractors' rates go from $125 an hour to $700 an hour. Yeah. And you're like, wow, why are you guys charging so much? Like, well, it's on an off location. You mean outside your front door? What are you talking about?
Because we can.
Yeah. I don't know. That kind of stuff drove me nuts. But I would love to see fiber optic get run around the U.S. to a lot of people out there that are having problems not having internet. Like, my whole reason for bringing that up is I didn't want to gloat and be like, you people out there that got to have DSL. Like, I think that it's realistically wrong that people are stuck using DSL.
Well, a great example is like if you look at Japan and South Korea, right? They have provided internet by their governments, and it's phenomenal. Especially when you're in like Tokyo or Seoul, you have quite literally the best internet connections in the world. Yeah. And it's all provided by the government, and they pay almost nothing for it. It's dirt cheap.
Well, it's the whole argument is like, well, how's Comcast going to make billions of dollars? And you're like,
they won't. Good.
Maybe they won't. Okay, let's move on. Let's move. Let's stop wasting our time. I mean, every company now is charging $10 to be, like watch their videos now. I guess me included with the join button. It's still free, but I would appreciate support. So you don't have to.
It seems like we have a request for your favorite death metal band, given your comment on it earlier.
My favorite death metal band?
Yeah.
My favorite metal band would have to be, like, if I just had to say, like, overall work, would be Mastodon.
Strong.
Is probably, I mean, you're like picking favorites is like, is a weird thing to do in its own right. I was a huge punk rock kid. I was into punk for years and years. I was into industrial music at the same time. So industrial electronic music. I mean, I've met Frontline Assembly.
Nice.
I met Frontline Assembly, and there's probably nobody in the chat right now that even knows what Frontline Assembly is.
I do.
But I know Bentley does because he was into electronic music.
I used to listen to quite a lot of industrial for fun.
Yeah, so, my music, I went to college for music production and music theory. That's what I initially went to college for. I ended up stopping doing that, realizing that somebody like me would end up being a board tech for $8 an hour for the rest of my life. And I didn't really want to do that. And I was running kitchens already. I was already running restaurants and stuff. So I just decided to go do that because that's where the money was at. And by the way, on a personal note, I was offered the job to be the chef at Google when they were still considered a startup with only like 30 employees at the time. So yeah, I did miss the lottery on that one because I didn't want to relocate to California because California, it's not my cup of tea.
There's also a lot of plants you can't keep in California.
I know.
From an aquarist perspective, I've had several places recently trying to get me to relocate for my field. and
to move down to California.
Yeah, to go
right,
down
yeah,
to go down to like Santa Clara and the Bay Area.
You would be so broke.
And Palo Alto. Yeah, and it's
they would like pay you $300,000 a year, and you'd be like,
"Well, no, they don't even offer
they're
that
foreclosing on my house."
Like, I'll give you transparency, right? Because I definitely don't make that much up here. But
no. I'm that's what I'm saying. Like,
when I was in an unemployed period between my contract and my previous contract and my current job, I got offered a role down in Palo Alto, and I was like, "Okay, are there?" How much is it a year? And they're like, oh, they'll pay you $120,000 a year. I'm like, your instinct is like, that's a lot of money.
And you're like, whoa.
And even in my field, that's a pretty good amount of money.
Right.
And then I was like, how absolutely abysmal is the housing market down there? Because I know it's bad, but how bad? Mm-hmm. So I found a house that was, I think it was 1,200 square foot, built in the 40s on a teeny tiny plot of land. And it was $1.3 million. And that was still with a half-hour commute to work. I was like, oh, so it's like impossible to live there on that money. Okay. I remember I called the company back and I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to decline that offer. And they're like, what's wrong with it? And I was like, have you looked at the housing prices in that area? Like even an hour and a half away at all? They're like, well, they do offer some moving expense reimbursement. And I'm like, not that's going to buy me a house down there, guy. Like, I have a home here. And I only have it because I bought it like the lowest time in the market. That's the only reason I was able to afford a home.
Right.
I was like, that's like one of those shocking things where you're like, oh yeah, that's a 1,200 square foot house. It's not very big. Oh, it's built in the 40s. It's old, so it can't possibly be. You want how much?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay in Seattle where it's still really bad, but it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, so moving to California was a bad idea. Same as a bad idea for you.
Look at that. From Big D Smoke, $2,600 a month for a studio in the San Francisco area.
It's pretty crazy. Like it's just the rates down there. And Greater Seattle is super expensive, but it's not that. I mean, it is super expensive to live like downtown Seattle.
Yeah.
It's super expensive to live downtown San Francisco, obviously.
And Redmond and Bellevue are
the outlying areas do allow some availability for people to live affordably. Like it just does. And California has less of that as you even go further out. You know, so it's like the reality is right now it's like I live 40 miles from Seattle. If I have work there, I could drive there in the morning. It's a long commute, blah blah blah, but I could drive there, and be affordable here. It just doesn't really work out in the rest of the world. To get back on our black metal conversation, Andre Saul says Mastodon is kind of a good band, but you should really listen to some Swedish death metal, which At the Gates I listen to, Entombed I listen to, Dark Tranquility I listen to. Yes, I do listen to those. He was asking my kind of favorite band metal, which... and I think the reality is you just look at the overall body of work of Mastodon. It starts out heavy, it gets lighter, it gets bluesier. The albums change from album to album. That's the big deal for me. You think of the overall body of work. Like it's really easy to pick a Rick Astley song that you like. You know what I'm saying? Rick Astley. Never gonna give you up. That guy? Right?
I know Rick Astley.
You could pick like a Rick Astley song.
I was trying to remember
really like.
any song other than "Never Gonna Give You Up."
What's the other one? I was on at Starbucks the other day. I forget what it is. But you could pick like a song of his, but his body of work, you'd be like, every song is pretty much the same until you get like a Christmas album. And then you're like, I don't want to listen to a Christmas album.
But that guy also has like one of the most deceptive voices out there.
Oh yeah, you think he's like a tall black guy, and it turns out he's a short white guy. Like what the hell?
And it's like bright red hair too.
Right, and a redhead. Yeah, you're like, what? I was not expecting that. Barbara says, any advice for a musician today? Yes, my advice for a musician today would be to produce, write, and make your own stuff and release it immediately. As soon as you are done with it, don't play it for anybody else. Don't do anything like that. Release it on something like YouTube under your own name, under your own rights. Don't do not allow anybody else to own the rights to your music. If you are just going to be a musician and maybe not a songwriter or anything like that, I would look into being a musician that is in demand. And the reason I say that is it's like guitar players, dime a dozen. Somebody that plays the oboe, you will have work this weekend at the symphony. Even if you're like fourth chair oboe, you will have work. You will have something to do. So, pick an avenue that you really want to be on. And it's just a great way. That's a great way to like pay your bills and stuff if you're just a musician and want to play.
And one thing that I'll add, and I only say this because I have a friend who used to work for me when I was doing some test work for Oculus. And he does like chiptune inspired metal music.
Okay.
So it's this really interesting fusion of like chiptune techno and metal. So he uses YouTube and uses Bandcamp is the other big thing that he uses. And those like his two, and he's got a couple other different platforms he's on, but he did his like first small kind of mini album, which was basically 5 songs and a small intro and outro.
Right.
And then from there, as each song gets completed, he does a little preview on YouTube to give you a feel for what it's going to be like before it releases, and then releases the actual song. And he'll have some work in progress stuff when he's like working with a guitarist buddy who lays down some of the riffs that he doesn't do himself. And while he's like tweaking and playing with stuff inside his software, so you can watch him crafting music live that eventually becomes a finished track.
Right.
And you're only hearing like little snippets of it to give you this like real small feel. It's like that little teaser. And I think it's a really good way to do music nowadays instead of trying to like the old traditional route where you play lots of clubs and you're just hoping to get spotted by some random label or some nonsense like that.
Right.
YouTube is especially, and all the online media, but YouTube just because it has such a good reach and people get to connect with you so well, is a really powerful tool for musicians. And it's interesting to see a number of people who are just even cover artists, like the guys that do, metal covers of video game music, or,
right.
There's like one of my favorites, it's out there, and this may sound like hysterical if you're not a video game music person,
right,
is called MES, which is Mariachi Entertainment System. So they do mariachi video game music, and they're super fun, but you also have to like mariachi, which I'm very strange in that I love mariachi. Compared to all the other things you listen to that I like, and then we're like, oh yeah, and mariachi, that's fun to listen to too.
Yeah,
but like, it's such a great platform for people who want to produce music at their own pace, in their own style, and eventually, being something that's very different. That's not your like, I'm guitar player 953 doing the same metal cover of song X, right? Doing something a little more different or out there, or just even a different presentation of something, whether it's a visual or what have you,
right, can
mean the world. It can be the difference between never having someone pay attention and somehow blowing up out of nowhere when you wouldn't have expected it.
Right. And then if you are I'm trying to find the book right now. Kevin Kelly, I think, is who wrote this.
This is the Rule of 1,000 that we
talked about? Rule of 1,000. It's funny that it's great that like, oh yeah.
Well, it was the second he was like the book, and I'm like, I think I know exactly what you're going for given our conversation.
Yeah. As far as a musician or anybody along those lines,
entertainer.
Yeah. Kelly, I don't know if it's a EY. I don't know if I can't find his book on
Amazon.
On Amazon, it doesn't seem to be on there.
Uh-oh.
But if you look up Kevin Kelly, Rule of 1,000 Fans, and I don't know where that book is. It doesn't seem to be on Amazon right now. Wish I could just pop you up a link, but I can't. So sorry about that. But
thanks, Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be on there for some reason. You're looking for the Rule of 1,000 Fans. in order to become basically independent as far as creation or art or music or whatever you're trying to do, which is kind of my point with the Patreon. The Patreon, our goal is to get to 1,000 fans. That's basically where we want to be. We're 25% of the way there, which is awesome. And if you look up The Rule of 1,000 Fans by Kevin Kelly, you'll be able to find and look and read that and kind of figure out exactly, what you're looking to do if you're trying to do anything in the creative field. And that's a great piece of advice to do that. As Barbara says, her son-in-law is a jazz drummer and is really working hard. I'll tell him. That's one of those things that percussionist is very difficult. The advice you would give any drummer out there, don't get splashy, don't add too many fills, and learn how to just play the tempo. That is the most important part. If you are a percussionist in any band, if you can keep time. That's what you need to do. And anytime that fills need to be added later, they will be. Like all the solos and stuff will be added later.
Speaking specifically on drummers, can I make a reference to one thing that's on YouTube that might be a good example to look to?
Sure.
There's a series out there, and I can't remember exactly what channel did it, but if you look it up.
Drummy McDrummerton.
No, it's Michael Jackson's drummer. The gentleman who, if I remember correctly, is John Moffat is his name. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They did a series where they went through like all of Michael's basically biggest hits.
Right.
And he would do a little bit of small explanation and then play it live with the rest of the music in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just watch how that man drums.
But it's new though.
And it's very recent. This is all shot very recently.
They have like new versions of it. He's like 60 or something.
Yeah, but you watch and it's like it's very clean. Mm-hmm. It's very tight. There's very little like overly showy flair. It's just about good technical drumming.
Yeah.
And it's, as someone who like does not play a musical instrument, unless you consider the turntables a musical instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I watched every single video in the series multiple times because it's enthralling to watch somebody who is that good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And not go overly showy. Like I love a lot of like rock drummers and stuff who like really are showmen. And you crazy guys like your Neil Pearts of life where it's like I have 4,000 drums around me, watch me go nuts.
Yeah.
But to see like what seems like a very simple kit and yet produce phenomenal work.
That's the reality of drumming. And if you really want to make a lot of money just being a drummer, you need to become a touring drummer. Honest, that's what you need to do. That's the avenue. Excuse me. That's the avenue to be making a lot of money as a drummer, is become a tour drummer, which means you ride around in a bus, and you show up at the location, and you drum for people like Britney Spears. It's just how you make the money. My buddy Kent did that for 12 years. He went to college for percussion, got his degree, left Seattle, went down to LA, got hired on as one of the touring drummers. He drummed for like Willie Nelson. He drummed for Britney Spears. He drummed for like, I think he did, I don't know, all the it's like Backstreet Boys. Like it was just like the worst of the kind of worst, realistically. Mm-hmm. And some of the good ones like Willie Nelson, right?
Yeah.
But you're also not a crazy drummer. You're just a guy back there with no lights on you, like you're in the dark. He did that for like 12 years, came back to Seattle with so much money that he bought his house cash.
Yeah.
And is retired now. He was retired at like 34. Something stupid like that. 35.
Well, and you can think there's also like some interesting stories out there where if you want to go for a fun musical history route, some of the people who we know now, you didn't know them in popular culture when they hit their biggest. And a great example would be the band Toto.
Right.
That is technically like the first like true supergroup. No one in popular music knew any of them, mm-hmm. but all of them were like, oh yeah, this is the guy who was the guitarist for all of these massive songs.
Right.
And he worked with X, Y, and Z for all of their biggest hits. And this guy's the drummer who worked with these 4 bands.
Right.
And literally drummed every one of their greatest hits. And like these people were all huge, but you had to be inside music culture to really know who they were.
Right.
And then literally like one album, and like you've got a song that I don't think there's a single person in the world that doesn't know at this point.
Well, the first real supergroup,
like,
was Cream.
Cream is pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, you just get Eric Clapton. I mean,
Slow-
you're like, hey, we need a
Slow
guy.
Hand's good.
We need a guy who like has a guitar. Does somebody have a guitar? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're getting up to the end of the show, and we're talking about music now, and we've lost our nonsense or whatever. But if you guys really enjoyed this nonsense, hey, feel free to help support, just like Sam Malone with the super chat action, or the hit the join button, or go over to Patreon. Do whatever you want. It's just kind of however you feel. It's however you feel. Anthony Brown with a $2 super chat says, "Sorry, I'm late. What have I missed?" You missed the beginning of the show. Go back and watch it 100 times, 1,000,000 times. Share it with your grandma. Share it with any person you've ever met in your entire life. Go onto Facebook and irritate everyone until they lose their minds because you've shared it on there so many times. You hit the like button so many times. I have a lot of content. You could feel free to go check that out. Bentley has a ton of better content than mine. Go check his out. And subscribe and all that kind of blah, 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 blah. And like I said, if you guys want us to continue doing these shows and improving and getting better and better, and thank you to everybody that has supported up to this point. If you would like us to do more and more and more, hey, when we hit those goals, the jobs get quit, and we do this stuff full time, and we hire on a whole bunch of workers to come film and edit and all of that kind of stuff. But those are all lottery dreams, which is why I bought a lottery ticket earlier this week, and I did not win. I didn't even win my $6 back. I bought a burrito and used the change to buy a lottery ticket, and I didn't win. It was a breakfast burrito. Come on now.
I meant to buy one on my birthday. And then my schedule was getting so pushed that I missed the time to buy one in time. So I was like, well, did anybody win it? And I looked at it. Nobody won. I'm like, I guess I didn't waste money. Good news.
Good news. It's waiting for me to win. Yeah.
My bad birthday present to myself didn't end up a waste of money.
Plural Singularity is asking, the real question is, how much of the YouTube membership do you actually get? We get... it really depends on your channel, apparently, for whatever reason. You get between 60 and 70%. So that's much better than anybody could do by watching videos. So trust me when I say, if you want to kick down $5 a month, it's monumental for anybody who's making YouTube videos. It's a big deal.
If you're one of those people who
look,
does Patreon,
don't become a member of Jake Paul's channel or Logan Paul's channel. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't. Those guys. Don't do that. Don't become a member of somebody who has 1 million subscribers or 10 million subscribers. It doesn't matter to them. Find a channel that has. And I'm not even saying necessarily my channel. I'm saying find a channel that you want to support. Become a member there of somebody that has, say, 70,000 subscribers. It's a big deal to them. 10,000 subscribers, 5,000.
Anything less than 100,000 subscribers. Yeah, those are still people that tend to have very strong interaction with their fan base still. Yeah, because it's still monitorable. It's still feasible to do so.
As Bentley knows, my Discord is on 24 hours a day. I'm not always engaged with it, but.
Hey, the Discord's fun, man.
You could post stuff up in there. Somebody will get back to you, and likely me. You know,
yeah. and you've got the other front line of Team Bentley.
That's right.
Both Alyssa and I are Alyssa far more than me, but we're relatively active in there.
Yeah, I mean we have enough people in there that it's pretty active. It's not like overly crazy like Facebook groups, stuff like that. But it's just active enough. I'm probably going to cap it at 1,000 people, and we're not going to probably not let it go over 1,000.
The founding 1,000.
Most likely, but nice. Probably just going to cap it at that, and then as people drop out, there'll be an extra spot or not or whatever. But that's kind of the thing with that. So I would say there's like limited spots, but there's 140 people in there, so there's a lot of open spots right now. But it really is one of those things that the pragmatic side of it is, I got bills, Bentley's got bills. We both have families. He doesn't have a kid, but we have families. We have spouses. We have things that we got to pay for. And like I said this yesterday, if there's a place in the world where you just get to live for free and do projects nonstop, I will move there tomorrow. But I don't know where that is. So somebody at least tell me where that is if that's the case. But big shout out to all of our super chatters of the day. Robert the Butcher, Ginger Graves, Fish Tank Barn, Val Van Zyl for becoming a member, Brick for Brick, Sam Malone, Anthony Brown, Sam Malone again, and Randall Brown with a Keep It Up $5 sticker.
Randall Bowman. Randall Bowman.
What did I say?
You said Brown.
Well, Bowman Brown. I mean, I'm trying to figure out that it's a pair that is lifting weights and dancing, and
is that what that is? It's a pair.
It's a pair that's lifting. It's a pair that's lifting weights. So that's pretty good. But anyhow, we got other work we got to do. We got to make some future planning. So see you later. Have a good time out there.